Hi, welcome to Cure America. I'm Star Parker, and when do we have another exciting show for you? It's Dobbs Week. It is the anniversary of Dobbs. Can you believe it? 1 year now. Abortion is in the states being debated. It got out of Washington when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Prayers for 50 years answered, and now we're in a Dobbs world. And so we are here in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club after hearing from the only female in Republican leadership, Elise Stefanik. Wait till you hear what she has to say. This week on Cure America with Star Parker, we are going to dive right into the whole Dobbs anniversary here in Washington and all that's happening. So we're going to start early with this particular presentation here at the National Press Club. Oh, I forgot to tell you who hosted the meeting. Susan B. Anthony list, well, of course, our friends. Marjorie Dannenfelser, I'm going to try to catch her as well, is the one that's hosting this event here at the National Press Club with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Listen to what she had to say.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. We supported her early on, which is what Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, loves to do for women who are models of what it means to be a pro-woman and pro-life elected official. Well, you can say a lot of things, and I've introduced a lot of people in this town over the years. We've had galas galore. I introduce people all the time. The resumes are fantastic. But I'm going to refer to you as Elise, if you don't mind, for just a minute. You can cite the resumes, but it's very rare that you can say, I actually like Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. And it's also very rare that that as an overachiever, she's a very likable overachiever. Also a rare commodity in this town. And what do I mean by overachieving? In order of reverse importance, she's the highest-ranking woman Republican in the House of Representatives. She was the youngest woman ever elected to Congress when she was sworn in 2014. She was the first woman ever elected to her district, District 20, the great district of New York 21. But most of all, she is the youngest mom in Congress, the most important thing in that list. That's not bad for a Harvard grad overachiever. And she comes from a long line of overachievers. And I refer to the women who have helped build America throughout American history to help make it great, and especially stepped up when there were great human rights wrongs going on in this country and led movements to directly overturn, to directly reveal and outlaw the great human rights abuses of our time. I refer to the abolitionists, for an example, abolitionists and suffragists, Susan B. Anthony as a perfect example. Susan B. Anthony, who you know quite well because I believe she lived right down the road from where you live. And you've been a part of helping restore her property and her name and her legacy. And Fannie Lou Hamer from Mississippi, who not as many people know, but was a very powerful civil rights activist who suffered dramatically. She was the 20th of 20 children. She worked in the cotton fields starting at age 13. She joined early on the civil rights movement in Mississippi, reformed within her party that human rights wrong, and a great pro-life standard bearer who called abortion child murder, along with Susan B. Anthony and all the other beautiful human rights leaders of our time. You are in that chain, and you are surrounded by a heavenly host of women like you. And I'm so proud that we get to hold you up as an example of what it means to fight with all your feminine intellectual gifts for the rights of unborn children and their mothers. So thank you, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Marjorie, for that kind introduction. And thank you to Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, for your tireless work protecting children and mothers. You have been such strong supporters since I first ran for Congress in 2014. And it's truly inspiring to look back on all of your hard work and recognize the historic achievements in moving the life movement forward. It's truly an honor to be here with you all today on the eve of the first anniversary of the Supreme Court's historic decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. As Marjorie mentioned in her introduction, I have the distinct honor of representing New York's 21st Congressional District, where I was proudly the youngest woman elected to Congress in 2014. I was born and raised in upstate New York, the cradle of the American Revolution. My district is home to where almost 250 years ago, brave patriots fought in the battles of Saratoga to turn the tide of the Revolutionary War and defended the very pillars of our constitutional republic: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There is a reason that life is first. New York's 21st Congressional District has a rich history of influential women leaders who fought not only for women's suffrage, but also importantly for the pro-life movement. My district is the birthplace of suffragette Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and where the namesake of this great organization, Susan B. Anthony, lived and worked as a school teacher. I'm proud to have worked to protect and preserve both her home and schoolhouse as historical sites in my district so that her legacy can continue to inspire the next generation of leaders. And as the youngest woman in history to serve in top leadership in Congress for either party, I'm proud to currently serve as chair of the House Republican Conference, where each week I lead House Republicans in communicating our conservative policy agenda to the American people. But by far, the most important and meaningful title I have in my life is mom. Almost 2 years ago, my husband Matt and I were blessed with our beautiful baby boy, Sam. And as every parent will tell you, our world changed forever for the better, and we simply cannot imagine life without our Sam. So it is as Sam's mom and the newest mom in Congress that I know there is nothing more extraordinary than the miracle of life. Hearing Sam's heartbeat, feeling his first flutters and kicks, and awaiting his healthy cry after delivery are etched in my heart forever. This year's anniversary of Dobbs is a moment to embrace how far we have come in this movement to protect the sanctity of life. It is also an historic opportunity to continue to strengthen the culture of life in America as we look to the future. For 50 years, there have been despicable and violent attacks on life, many of the worst happening in the last year alone. Yet we are steadfast in standing up and providing a voice for the voiceless and the most vulnerable, the unborn who cannot speak for themselves. Since Roe was overturned and the Supreme Court restored the correct interpretation of our Constitution, 25 states have life-saving laws on the books. Common sense policies like parental consent laws, limits on late-term abortion, and informed consent provisions that were previously tossed aside by radical activist judges are now protected and enshrined. These efforts have protected the lives of an estimated 181,000 children. Sadly, many Americans took the opposite approach last year, and some of the worst aspects of humanity were on display. There was an unprecedented leak at the Supreme Court meant to intimidate and obstruct the justices, jeopardizing the independence of our political system and severely damaging the reputation of the court. Extremists broke the law and picketed the homes of the justices, plotted to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh, and firebombed scores of pro-life pregnancy centers and vandalized churches that provide support to women, babies, and families. Then Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Majority Leader Chuck Schumer made these incidents worse by slow-walking security protections for justices and refusing to denounce such heinous attacks. Pro-life advocates were beaten by radicals in the streets, illegally targeted by President Biden's FBI, and arrested in their homes with their children present, all for peacefully protesting and standing for life. We saw the loyal stenographers for the far left in the mainstream media promote division and discord, even defending and making excuses for the criminal actions of the extreme pro-abortion activists. This debate is certainly intense, heartfelt, and deeply personal on all sides. But I am so proud that the vast majority of Americans involved in this important conversation continue to conduct themselves in a respectful, meaningful manner that advances the dialogue. We've spoken to our neighbors, organized in churches and community groups, donated to charities, and supported state and federal legislation and candidates. For nearly 50 years under Roe v. Wade, it was this fundamental tenet of free speech and debate that was silenced and sidelined. We should embrace this debate. It provides a moment to rise to the new challenges the life movement faces. It also holds the promise of new and better policies that protect the unborn, encourage and support women, and expect more from fathers. It allows us to argue and win the fact that the right to life is the foundational issue of human rights. As our founders brilliantly proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence, each of us is endowed with the right to life by our Creator. Without this right, no other right has any meaning. And because of that, this debate today is a primary question of public policy for state, local, and yes, federal policymakers. It was Roe v. Wade, sweeping away the protective laws of all 50 states, laws both liberal and conservative, each of them enacted by the people's elected representatives, that deviated from a course that has been progressing, legally and medically, toward enhancement of the rights of the unborn. Even the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg reflected that, quote, Roe v. Wade invited no dialogue with legislators. Instead, it seemed entirely to remove the ball from the legislator's court. If you listen to the far left, common sense state laws are new and extreme, the invention of religious extremists, opponents of women's rights, and antagonists of modern health care. We know the exact opposite is true. Pro-life advocates are not extremists, we are not anti-women, and terminating the life of an unborn child is not health care. In fact, our pro-life convictions are sewn into the very fabric of America. Just look to the great Henry Hyde, the towering advocate for life, whose federal funding amendments have saved, according to the best data available, the lives of more than 2.5 million of our fellow Americans. Speaking at the University of Notre Dame, and I know we have an intern from Notre Dame here today, Hyde said, quote, when the great wave of Catholic immigration to America occurred in the 19th century, Catholics didn't import pro-life attitudes. These were already here. This was the consensus, not only of the United States, but also of all civilized people. Abortion was wrong. The Supreme Court didn't express a new consensus in 1973. It attacked the consensus that already existed. End quote. That consensus was forged by scientific developments regarding the unborn and the action of the newly founded medical societies like the American Medical Association in 1847. Modern medicine provides further proof that unborn children are already amazingly complex human beings. At just 6 weeks, a baby's heart beats approximately 98 beats per minute. By week 10, a baby has arms, fingers, and toes and can sigh and stretch. At 12 weeks, a baby's brain is creating 250,000 neurons a minute, developing pathways and connections that survive well into adulthood. At 15 weeks, we know an unborn child feels and responds to pain. And as little as 22 weeks, science tells us that a child can survive outside the womb. This is a medical miracle. And no one speaks more eloquently on this fact than parents of premature babies, blessed with a child coming into their lives a little earlier than expected. Sadly, we also see the pain and suffering when women who experience a tragic miscarriage courageously talk about the loss of life that they will mourn forever. Today, pro-abortion advocates ignore this consensus and want to go far further than just enshrining Roe, putting forward the most radical abortion on demand paid for by the taxpayers up until and after birth. Within the last month, governors in 2 states have actually vetoed bills that would have safeguarded the lives of children born alive after attempted abortions. On the contrary, in the 118th Congress, House Republicans proudly passed the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, providing health care for babies who survive abortion procedures. Yet, 210 House Democrats alarmingly voted against this bill. The extreme Democrat position of today is to oppose protecting children who are born alive, refuse to provide access to any medical care, and leave babies to die after their first miraculous breaths outside the womb. Just last year, House Democrat leadership and President Joe Biden refused to condemn attacks against crisis pregnancy centers, churches, and pro-life organizations by radical, violent, far-left activists. These facilities were set ablaze, defaced, and vandalized. It's reported that as of June 2023, there have been at least 87 attacks on pregnancy resource centers and 165 attacks on Catholic churches since the May 2022 Dobbs leak. In the Democrat Party of today, the silence was deafening. Since President Biden and Democrats failed to condemn this violence, House Republicans passed a resolution in support of crisis pregnancy centers and rightfully condemned these attacks and vandalism. It is telling that 209 House Democrats voted against this resolution. The reality is that it's Republicans and the life movement who represent the consensus, and it is the Democrats who are the radicals, out of touch with the vast majority of the American people. The majority of the American people believe a baby born alive should be provided necessary health care. The majority of the American people condemn violent attacks on crisis pregnancy centers. And while those in the media want to portray Americans as viscerally divided on this issue, I believe there is far more consensus than the media would like to admit. A recent Harvard-Harris national poll found 72% of voters support limiting abortions at 15 weeks, including 75% of women, 70% of independents, and 60% of Democrats. The vast majority of Americans oppose late-term abortion. 60% of Americans oppose using taxpayer dollars to fund abortions. 91% of Americans support pregnancy centers and the vital material, medical, and educational support to mothers they offer both during their pregnancy and after their baby is born. 58% of Americans say that healthcare professionals should not be required to perform abortions if they have moral objections. It was not so long ago that even the Democrat Party platform stated abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. And now rare is never uttered. It is Democrats in Congress and in state governments, along with the Biden administration, who are wildly out of step with the values of the American people. Less than 10% of voters support the position of today's radical Democrat Party that there should be no limits on abortion. Given this very clear consensus, we have a historic opportunity to turn our attention to enacting a federal law that protects an unborn child when he or she can feel pain. This is why I have been a proud sponsor of the pain-capable bill since I was first sworn into office. While I strongly support ensuring robust pro-life riders, of course, remain intact, and we protect the whole Hyde family of amendments in our appropriations process that we're beginning right now, we should also turn our attention to a permanent solution and ensure taxpayer dollars never support abortions. At the same time, Standing for Life goes beyond a child's birth. The life movement deeply understands that we must support and lift up mothers and families. And it is why the life movement must continue to advocate for the value and dignity of all Americans throughout their lives, and we can do that by focusing on the evident needs of new mothers and fathers. I have been a strong supporter of the Care for Her Act, legislation establishing a commitment to care for expecting mothers and their unborn children through expanding the child tax credit, providing state and federal resources, distributing grants for housing, job training, and more. I was also proud to vote for the Pump for Nursing Mothers Act to provide working mothers the access and accommodations they need while breastfeeding while they continue to work. And I was proud to lead the effort to hold Joe Biden and his FDA accountable to ensure that new parents had access to baby formula amidst a nationwide shortage. Many working parents within my district have told me that they struggle to find childcare options that make sense for their family. That's why I strongly support the After Hours Child Care Act, which expands the traditional guidelines of federally funded daycare to evening care. And I was proud to introduce the Family Child Care Network Act to make it easier for family child care providers and home-based care to operate, especially in rural communities like my district, where there are limited child care options. And as a young mother in Congress, I am very conscientious of the importance of role models. My husband Matt and I have been just humbled by the overwhelming number of families and especially new or soon-to-be parents who have reached out to us as examples of hardworking professionals and dedicated parents. I was fortunate enough myself to have Kathy McMorris Rodgers as a mentor and role model to me in Congress. Kathy gave birth 3 times while serving in the House, and I'm not sure I would have had the confidence to serve in top leadership as a young mother were it not for Kathy's extraordinary example. House Republicans are excited that later this year, our congressional family is growing and already has grown as we welcome 3 new babies with Dan Crenshaw of Texas, Max Miller of Ohio, and Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, all welcoming their first child. Everything we work toward and fight for every day is for the next generation to have life and opportunity. I truly believe that the Supreme Court entrusted all of us with the responsibility of taking an important and deeply personal issue and building consensus to provide every child, mother, family, and especially the unborn children this truly precious and sacred opportunity at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. While the media and the far left want to make this about sowing division and scoring political points, I believe that the pro-life movement can and will continue to work to save more lives and support women and families. Protecting life and defending the unborn are not extreme positions. They are fundamental to human rights and the American dream. And I know the life movement will always remember our moral compass and be worthy of this fight, be worthy of this mission. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. God bless you. God bless the miracle of life, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Yes, yes. I would love to take questions. Marilyn.
What a beautiful speech, Congresswoman. I just want to tell you I got a text from my granddaughter Reagan when I first got into the room, and saying, "Good morning, Grandma." She's on Colorado time. I love you. And I want to tell you, Congresswoman, how important it is to have a role model for you. For my 7 granddaughters, for young people around this country, I am so encouraged by the example that you have set. Now, to a question, men never get asked this, and I'll ask the men too when I have opportunity, but you have precious little Sam. And people always want to know how a woman with a career balances all this. And respectfully, I ask you, could you tell women and young women that aspire to marry and have children how you do it?
Well, thank you for the question, and I have really been humbled, as I mentioned in my speech, about the outpouring of support from my colleagues, both men and women. And I will tell you that the House Republican Conference, before I became conference chair, truly embraced our growing family. In terms of how we manage it, you know, every family is a little bit different, but we are juggling 2 careers, and we travel as a family of 3. My husband, myself, and my son Sam travel back and forth to the district. So Sam is here with me this week in Washington, and when we're home in the district, we're home as a family of 3. We have a great support system with family in upstate New York, as well as sometimes in Washington. My mother-in-law will help us out, as well as we have we call it school, but a great little daycare program for Sam when he's here. So we have made it work, and I have to tell you, my colleagues have been so encouraging, and the importance of role models is not lost on me. And having seen Kathy McMorris Rodgers serve as conference chair, giving birth to 3 children, that really mattered to me, and I realize it now more as a mom. And interestingly, some of the newly elected women in Congress, many of whom I worked with to get elected, we have the highest number of Republican women ever, have said to me that, you know, as they're having, you know, they're thinking about what this next chapter could be for them becoming parents, they've said, you know, my husband and I talk about how do Elise and Matt do it, and they'll ask us questions, so I'm proud to serve as a role model for them. And I've had great conversations with Anna Paulina Luna, who will give birth later this year, as well as Dan Crenshaw and Max Miller, who they also have questions too about how to juggle it. So thank you so much, and I want to encourage all of the young people here today, both future moms and future dads. You can make it work, and nothing is more precious, you will find, than becoming a parent. It actually makes you better at doing your jobs, and it has given me a tremendous amount of energy of what I'm fighting for every day, and that's the next generation and the world that I want to leave for Sam and young children. Yes, Mrs. Ferguson.
Hi there. You mentioned the family of Hyde amendments. Could you elaborate on Congress's plan to protect the family of Hyde amendments to
Absolutely.
prevent tax funding of abortion?
So we have one of the most important responsibilities in the appropriations process. And if you remember in the last Congress under Speaker Pelosi and the Democrat majority, they are so radical that they wanted to eliminate all the Hyde protections in the appropriations process. We, as House Republicans, strongly stood up, as well as Republicans in the Senate, to protect those Hyde provisions. We intend to do that in the appropriations process, and because we're in the majority, we'll get that done. It's very important, but it is a lesson for all of us. What seemingly was a bipartisan consensus for decades, that is not the Democrat Party of today, where it became basically the embraced position of House Democrats to eliminate those Hyde amendments, or the family of Hyde amendments in the appropriations bill. So that's going to be an important issue for us in the appropriations process, as well as many, many other parts that will be important in this appropriations fight. And we are going to have to show strength, and we will, as House Republicans. In addition to the Hyde amendments, you also have H.R. 7, no taxpayer funding for abortions. That is also important as a permanent solution, as well as the appropriations protections. Other questions, maybe from our interns? Any interns have questions? Yes, ma'am.
Star Parker, blackcommunitynews.com. And now that Dobbs is a reality and all the numbers are coming in, we know that 20 million African American babies were washed away due to Roe, that Planned Parenthood deliberately has targeted our poorest communities. So my question is, that is more babies gone and adults, potential adults, than were alive during the civil rights movement. So my question is, are you finding anyone on the other side of the aisle in the Congressional Black Caucus and or other liberals who are representing areas to where this has been such a tragedy that are willing to work with you to protect life in any way whatsoever?
Well, the Democrat Party of today has really run those voices out of their caucus. If you look at some of the primary challenges that have happened, even since I've been in Congress, of how radical today's Democrat Party is. But I will tell you, what is so important to me is look to the voters, look to the American people. It's not just registered Republicans, and I went through some of this polling. It's independents as well as registered Democrats who support our consensus position, which is protecting life. They do not support the radical positions of the Joe Biden and his administration and today's Democrat Party in the House. So I believe that that is a huge opportunity for us to continue to build this consensus as we work towards strong pro-life legislation. So I always look to the people. The people are the most important voices, and it's going to be very important that they make their voices heard in the elections at all levels, at state level, in state houses, in governor's races, as well as the upcoming federal races in 2024.
To piggyback off of Star, a lot of the minority communities find that we support life, but life after birth can be difficult. How do, to find support, having daycare and aftercare for the communities that, parents might be having to work multiple jobs and stuff like that. So a lot of times, we say that, okay, we're going to support, but how do we plan to put some hands-on and some actual physical things that we can see to bring those community in with us and to target them better?
It's a great question, and one of the bills that I've introduced strengthens home-based childcare as well as family-centered childcare. That's certainly an issue in my district. We work with our local chambers of commerce, and they will tell you childcare is one of their top concerns when it comes to making sure that they can continue to have their workforce in place. So there are Republicans leading on this issue. That would pass through the Education and Workforce Committee, because it really is a workforce committee. But I also talked about it's something that the Life community, we can and should be embracing to provide that support, particularly for our young mothers and young fathers, and particularly for our single mothers who are working as well as raising their children. This is about embracing the continuum of life. And look to the legislation that I've introduced, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to come up with other solutions, as well as the expanded child tax credit, the Care for Her Act, which we've worked with so many of the pro-life organizations on.
Child Care Network Act. I was wondering, what is the status of each of these pieces of legislation?
Sure. So each of those pieces of legislation have been introduced. They have not gone through, well, Pump for Nursing Mothers Act actually passed and was signed into law. The other bills have been introduced. They would have to work through the committee process.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the difference between state legislators and Congress.
Sure. So I believe that at the federal level, we do have a role to play in this, ensuring that no taxpayer dollars go towards funding abortions, and also having a minimum. The 15 weeks bill with exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother, that's legislation that I support. And then states are able to continue to sign into law strong pro-life legislation. But what's important that both the federal and state level, those are elected officials making the decision, who are elected by the American people, rather than radical judges who frankly took the voice away from the American people when they took that away from legislators. We rightly have that back, and it's our responsibility.
I caught up with Congresswoman Marilyn Musgrave. She's not here in Congress on that side, but she sure is here on the side of pro-life. Look, yeah. You're always in Washington.
Well, it's a good place to be, especially as we anticipate this anniversary. And you know, Star, I never thought I would see in my lifetime to see Roe overturned. And here we are now, about a year out. And what a beautiful thing today to be with the conference chair, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, talking about her support for life.
Wow,
and
very supportive, very powerful support.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
And I look to her as a role model for my 7 granddaughters and pro-life women around this country. She has a career, and she has little Sam, and she's devoted to life. She talked about her work in Congress, protecting the Hyde Amendment, putting a national reasonable limit on abortion, the Pain Capable Act, and also the support that we need for women around this country, Star, that find themselves in very difficult positions. Not only are we pro-life, we are pro-woman. And
you work with the her plan a lot. But wait, I'm going to stop you because don't forget, I've been in Washington a long time. I remember when you were in those same halls of Congress as a congresswoman championing life. So I'm just not going to let you get away with saying, okay, this is not about me. This is, you passed the baton, and you passed it well.
Well, thank you. God has really blessed us as women to stand for life and to make our voices heard for those women, for their children, for their families.
Thank you so much. This is an exciting time. You say, oh, I didn't anticipate it. Honey, we were praying and we were marching and we were slushing through snow and everything else. How come no one anticipated? I tell people this is kind of like when people were praying back in the day for Peter to get out of jail. Then he knocks on the door and they're like, that can't be Peter. Well, it was Peter. You prayed. It happened.
Amen.
So now the work begins to go out and save the lives of the unborn and their parents, and then to welcome all of these new moms and their babies into the world. So thank you.
I admire you and love you. Thank you.
I love you too. I love you too. Oh, I see Marjorie's here too. I'm going to catch Marjorie Dannenfelser. It's an exciting time here at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. and the anniversary week of Dobbs, I guess we can say now. Roe died.
I know. It's now Dobbs celebration.
It's a Dobbs
It's a celebration of life.
Tell us what you're doing, okay? We just heard from amazing congresswomen.
Things.
So tell us, yes.
So many amazing things. What a week. What a week. Well, goodness, I'll probably see you at a lot of them.
Yes.
But I'm with Kellyanne Conway, and I today are going to gather on a webinar with 30 or so women legislators from across the country who in the last year have helped pass these strong pro-life protections. Almost half the country has done that so far.
It's amazing,
Yeah.
and you can kind of appreciate now why the left fought so hard to keep Roe as national law, because the country's pro-life. They didn't like that stuff.
Yeah, I love what the Congresswoman said, that yes, we're talking about building consensus, but we already actually have consensus, and the Democrats, the abortion lobby, is attacking consensus. They're attacking the most reasonable, moderate things that we think, oh my gosh, that's so weak. Like a 15-week limit. They can't even handle that.
They can't even handle that. And when I asked the Congresswoman about is there any consensus on the other side, when we look at these black numbers, 20 million since Roe v. Wade, and she's just like, we'll have to go to the people. That's sad.
I know, it's
We
sad.
have 100 progressives in the Congress. You have every
it's so
poor
sad.
community where they're just so lost now that because of family breakdown, and yet not one is willing to reach across the aisle.
I agree, and of course, this is before politics. This isn't this is pre-political. This is our hearts, who we are, the fiber of our family, our morality, and it used to be a shared project of most Democrats in leadership, and the pro-life and the Republican Party. It was, and now that
Black leaders are on record for having been pro-life.
Yeah.
And now it's just
So
totally
many.
the opposite.
So
totally
many.
opposite. So I'm so glad that you're still fighting in this battle. I'm
Well-
so glad that you're mentioning all of the heroes in this battle. And and we're going to just
you,
keep going until
you
it's
and Fannie Lou Hammer. I've had you on my mind today.
we got it. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder what Mildred Jefferson would think.
And
about. But
Mildred,
okay,
sorry,
and
Mildred.
don't
I think you heard. Everybody knows Mildred.
Everyone knows Mildred. Thank you so much. Okay, and I will probably see you throughout the day
Yeah, right.
on this
yeah.
special day,
Oh, we
this
will.
special week.
We will. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
BlackCommunityNews.com is why I'm here, but you're listening to Cure America with Star Parker, and we're having a wonderful time. We're heading over to the Capitol Hill, and so we'll probably be outside a little while, but I'm going to bring you everything I can while we're celebrating life, all of the babies that were born since Roe died. Okay, we're leaving the press club and we're going to head over to Capitol Hill and see what's exciting over there on this anniversary week of Dobbs, and more Dobbs. You need to be involved in pregnancy care centers in your local community. You need to be involved with Susan B. Anthony. You need to be involved in any and everyone that's doing anything to protect the lives of the unborn. This is an exciting time for the Lord. It's an exciting time for moms. You know how many children have been born since Roe was thrown out, since Roe died? My goodness, we have babies now that are growing up into adults that would not have been here had it not been for that Supreme Court decision. So we're very excited here in Washington, D.C., and I hope you're excited in your states about all of the activity that is going on to protect the lives of the innocent.
The Dobbs decision didn't end abortion in America, but it turned the decision back for abortion away from the Supreme Court back to the American people to say, make a decision about when life begins. Make a decision about the value of every single child. There's no way to really know at this point, but the best guess that we have is about 200,000 children were born this year that would not have been born. That's 200,000 kids. That's 200,000 smiling faces on playgrounds. That's 200,000 silly songs starting in kindergarten. That's 200,000 families that'll be blessed with looking in the eyes of a child saying that every single child is valuable. So for us, we're celebrating a Dobbs decision, and we're celebrating the option to be able to be turned back to the American people where it was before, to be able to make the decision about the value of every single child. Now, multiple states are making different decisions on this, but we're grateful to be able to have the dialogue at least happening around the country so that once again, we're not talking about legal issues, we're talking about heart issues, and we're talking about the value of every single child. I'm a firm believer that every child is valuable. There aren't some children that are disposable and some children that are valuable. Every child is valuable. The Dobbs decision a year ago turns it back to the American people to say, that's what I believe. I believe every child is valuable. What do you believe? Let's have this dialogue and let's initiate that, whether it is in that building or whether it's in state capitals all over the country, to be able to have this ongoing dialogue.
So I believe in the miracle of life. I believe that life begins at conception. And that's why we're here today, to honor this Dobbs decision. It's our responsibility to be a voice for the voiceless, to honor the sanctity of life, and fight to protect the lives of the millions of unborn babies.
What I proposed is a one-time single-issue referendum held in each state, whether it's binding or advisory, to again pose that question: have we the people decide at what point does society have the responsibility to protect life?
All of us are here to say that we as a country support a culture of life. We believe profoundly that every life matters, and that we ought to reduce the number of abortions in this country. And what the Dobbs decision essentially said and did was return that decision back to the states, where it should have been decided in the first place. It is incumbent upon all of us to do everything we can to support a culture of life in this country. And so many of the pro-life advocates, the people who have fought these last 50 years to get to where we are today with this decision, are the people who are out there day in and day out helping, assisting, ministering to, caring for those moms and those babies.
As we celebrate the anniversary of what is the most consequential, or at least the second most consequential Supreme Court decision in the history of the country. Before Roe, no other decision in the history of the Supreme Court has cost 60 million lives. One would hope that one day history will judge those who support abortion today like we judge those who supported slavery in years past. And as slavery was the scourge on our nation's history of the 17 and 1800s, so is abortion of the 1900s and the 2000s, and would hope that one day we would look upon those who supported abortion the same way we'd look upon those who supported slavery. Some things are worth doing because they are right, because they are moral, irrespective of the politics, as we change hearts and minds and win people over to the position of life.
For decades, right up to this very moment, abortion purveyors have gone to extraordinary lengths to ignore, trivialize, and cover up the battered baby victim. They've aggressively fostered a culture of denial, profound disrespect, and bias, prejudice against unborn babies. Thankfully, with Justice Alito writing what I thought was a brilliant decision, he has conveyed to lawmakers at every level, local, federal, state, every level, the ability to write law and policy to protect innocent unborn children. We have begun a new debate on abortion, and I do believe that people are with us already, and as increasingly they realize the carnage that it has caused will rally even more going forward.
Well, here you are in the life of Star Parker and Cure in Washington, D.C., live here on Capitol Hill. Now, earlier we were at the press club, now we're over here, and a whole lot of things happen in between. It's only an hour show, but we got a lot. I just thought I was going to do this grand opening before they started to tell you about our friend Senator Lankford and his efforts here to continue the discussion about life. But as you notice, they kind of grabbed me and put me in the inside of the, what do you call it when you're like in the background? I think it's called extras in the movies, but whatever. I was prepared to make a statement because they did say you might have to say a few words. Well, I did think, what few words would I say? The few words I would have said is, we are celebrating moms. Do you know how many people from this time last year, when Roe died and Dobbs came alive, have now had a child? I think Chris Smith from the great state of New Jersey, a congressman there, actually mentioned could be 100,000, could be 200,000. The data's not in yet. But these women are moms now. They have this little life that they're responsible to say, this person can become an adult. They can continue the legacy. This is fantastic being here right across the street from the Supreme Court, and we're experiencing it now. Let me see if I can go and find somebody and get a few words that were here, that are excited to bring it straight to you. I ran into Chris Smith, the great Chris Smith, the great state of New Jersey. Well, wait a minute, you've been doing this 50 years.
Yeah, 50
you must. You know, you mentioned in your remarks about maybe 100,000. We don't have the data yet. Maybe 200,000. But these are moms. You must be very excited to see your work come to pass.
Well, it's collective work and so much prayer for so long, including your Star and your advocacy. It has made all the difference in the world. And I do believe people are waking up The polls, all this nonsense post-Dobbs, everybody should be running for the hills. That is so false. I have found when I've had even more Democratic-leaning districts in the past, when you stand up and defend the unborn child and equally show compassion, which we all do for the mom, people rally. They're not. We don't have a pro-abortion America the way these people here and the way the White House thinks exists. It doesn't exist, and we need to act in courage. Encourage and courage.
I agree. Encourage with courage. But you mentioned your state,
Yes,
New Jersey. There are other states, California,
New York.
that are insisting on just pushing in.
I know.
Is this a disconnect with the legislators and the people are starting to say, wait, what? They're doing it all the way through 9th month. Wait, what? We're talking about a lot of women now who've had an abortion who the day after the Dobbs decision looked in the mirror and started crying.
I know.
What do you not only say to them, but how in the world could the legislatures in states like this be so disconnected from the reality that people are in deep mourning and struggle over this
That's
very,
a
very
great
important
question,
issue?
Star. You know, the Democratic Party has become the party of abortion and the party of death. When I got elected in 1980, there were about 80 pro-life Democrats, and we worked, very closely with them every single day. Now there's one, and even
Wait, there was 80 in what
in the
year
House
was
of
that?
Representatives, 1980.
Yeah, 1980.
So that was 43 years ago.
Now there are none.
Now there's none. Tony Cuellar gives us a vote
every now and
then, right? But by and large, the entire, and that same goes for the Senate. And it's become like a religion, to promote abortion on demand and even after birth, but certainly before all 9 months. I'm perplexed by it to this day, how otherwise smart and seemingly reasonable people could say it's okay to dismember a baby, chemically poison a baby, and even with the abortion pill. I did this on the floor a couple times already, and I said, does anybody know how that works? It starves the baby to death. That's the first action that happens. So a little child that up to about 10 weeks can't get any nourishment, and you're killing the baby that way. What about
I
hunger?
don't want to be too descriptive because it's moms that we
Well,
also want to talk about.
I agree.
Because, in fact, I was just reading yesterday about where Romans, he said, actually, they're foolish. They think they're wise, but they're actually foolish. So we understand what you're up against, and we understand what our legislatures are doing, but the moms are who we should be most concerned about. And you have been advocating for a long time on behalf of the innocent. What would you say to that one today that's like, I can't believe that I am getting ready to give birth because I was on my way to abortion clinic and Dobbs interrupted that decision?
Well, I think they should feel a sense of relief for eternity. I know many women who have had abortions. I mean, hundreds. My wife and I work with a lot of the post-abortive women, and it's all about loving them, helping them, realizing that the God we serve is all about love and compassion and reconciliation. We want them back. The baby's gone, but we want them back. And they have a life ahead of them.
They do.
And we got to tell that. And the pregnancy care centers.
Some of the pregnancy care. I'm going to but actually a lot of the folks who are post-abortive who actually experience work in our pregnancy care centers.
Of course. They're there out of empathy for another woman who's suffering the same plight they had, and they're saying, please, don't do this.
Don't do this. Well, we're ending it, and it's on a journey. And you mentioned earlier, I think it was you or one of your colleagues mentioned about the same kind of time during slavery where we actually had to make some hard decisions as a country. What are you working on inside of the House? Some are arguing that, abortion is not going to come back to the country. Yes, it's a national issue. There's no need of us pretending.
That's right.
What are you guys thinking about? What are you saying? What are you working on behind closed doors?
Well, we absolutely need a federal law. We need all the great state laws that have already passed, but simultaneously a lot of very bad laws passed, including in my own state of New Jersey, which is abortion till birth. Well, our bills, including the heartbeat bill and the 15-week ban, pain-capable bill, that preempts the bad laws. It leaves untouched the other bills.
Okay, so you're saying that. So if you guys get that done here in Washington,
right, it preempts the bad laws.
It's going to preempt what they're doing in New Jersey, New York, California, and all the rest of the states that are insisting on killing children.
Exactly.
Okay, good,
and that's the beauty of it. It says,
and there was two of them you mentioned. 15
yes, 15 weeks, which would be the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, and the Heartbeat Bill, which is about 6 weeks.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is awesome.
But it's a
Say
preemption.
again? You got to go vote. Oh my gosh, your girl said you got to go vote. You know what? And especially if you're going to vote on this, we love you
I wish it
dearly.
was on this.
Okay,
What
this is the beginning.
That's right. It is the beginning.
This is the beginning.
It's
So
the
thank
beginning.
you for all that you're
And
doing.
with God's grace,
Yeah.
we will prevail. Apart from Him, we can do nothing.
It's exactly
Absolutely.
right. You are so incredible, and thank you. This is just a joyful moment to be able to spend it with you here 1 year after that Dobbs decision that we all cross our fingers that the court would come for life, and they did.
Exactly.
Now the
And
hard
Justice
work
Alito,
begins.
by the way, is from my hometown.
Oh, is he?
Hamilton Township. Yep.
Okay, well, whatever. And
He's a
Juju,
great guy.
well,
No,
you
I've
tell
known him for years.
you tell him to go up there and start knocking on doors and tell him to get to save the New Jersey. Okay,
right.
you know what? You're saying get him, give me him back. We're giving him back. You know what, Congressman Chris Smith, we're gonna give him back so he can go get some votes in. They're grabbing him. He could talk all day and all night about life because he's been, as he said in his presentation, fighting on behalf of the unborn for 50 years. So it's just a joyful time for him, I could tell. I'll be right back after this important message.
I know it's not my words that helps a person, it's God's word. It's the power of the gospel. God sent his son, Jesus Christ, from heaven to this earth to take our sins. But on the third day, God raised his son to life. The Bible says, but he wants everyone to come in repentance. But you ask Christ into your heart, he'll give you that strength, he'll give you that power. But you've got to be willing to say, God, help me. By faith, trust Jesus Christ.
Okay, that was a really important message. If you need to know the Lord, there it is right there. So call that number that Franklin Graham just told you about. In the meantime, we are looking at an opportunity that a whole lot of people are going to be called mom, like any moment now, because of this decision that was made a year ago. So I just caught up with Senator Lankford, Jim Lankford from the great state of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I know where you live. I know even everything
I was
about
going to
you.
help you sing the song.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were. You know what? Actually, I saw Oklahoma on stage. Never mind, because they, no, you know what? They woke it.
Yeah.
Oklahoma
No,
used to
the
not
new
be.
version,
It's
yeah.
so horrible.
That's
I don't
not-
even want to
that's
talk
not
about it.
Oklahoma. That's not Oklahoma.
It's not Oklahoma. I've been to Oklahoma many
Yeah.
a times. I'm like, no, this is not what they do there. But what you do there is you protect life.
Sure.
Look what you're doing. I mean, this was exciting. You had a lot of your colleagues out. Just tell us, when did you decide, okay, let's come together, let some of my Senate friends come together and just talk about it?
So the 1 year of the Dobbs decision coming up, this is a key moment. We should be talking about life and about the value and what's actually happened in 1 year. The best estimate we have, and there's no way to really know, the best estimate we have is around 200,000 children have been born this year that would not have been born if it wasn't for that Dobbs decision that was actually made. So that's 200,000 preschoolers one day. That's 2,000 kids singing silly songs and running around on playground equipment. That's 2,000 lives and families that are really affected in the days ahead. And so
It's
for us,
200,000 moms looking in the eyes of this
Yeah,
kid
that's
that they
right.
thought, I couldn't do this. And now they're just like, I couldn't imagine my life without this.
That's correct. That's correct. And so for us, it's a big deal to be able to celebrate that. The left right now is angry and trying to find ways to increase abortions in America and saying this is a terrible thing that all these children are being born. We don't want this many children being born. We thought it was appropriate to bring a happy message to be able to come out and to say, okay, I know they're angry about children being born. We're actually excited for every single child.
Yeah, you know, there was lyrics in a song, African American song, that he looked, speaking of the Lord, he looked beyond my fault and saw my need. And I think one of the things that gets little attention in the pro-life community are our pregnancy care centers, that they look beyond the fault. They see the need to bring this life forward. Media, major and liberal and progressive will never give credit for that, but we know that that's a reality. Why don't you speak for one moment to that woman who says, but I just don't know that I can do this, because you guys are making major decisions here. It is going to come back to Washington, and as many have said, we don't want it just illegal. We really want it unthinkable. But there are people that, some by no fault of their own, they're pregnant. Some just because, like me, promiscuous life patterns. Speak to her.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Those I always have great compassion for those moms, because no one rushes into an abortion and is excited about it. No one's excited about an abortion. They know it's a terrible procedure, and in their heart, they know that's a child. And so I have great compassion for those moms. And the first thing that we can do is actually go to them and say, hey, you're a mom. You're a mom. Okay, so let's first celebrate that. I know the situation and everything else is tough, but we've had lots of children that are born and all over the country and all backgrounds. They were born in tough spots that grew up to be amazing adults and amazing kids. And some of those moms that are right now saying, I had a tough start. And so this is an opportunity for them to say, okay, let's set this right for the next generation. Second thing we try to do is those pregnancy resource centers, those volunteers and those people that are there, they're coming alongside moms saying, I'm going to help you be a better mom. I'm going to train you. I'm going to encourage you. We're going to get diapers to you. We're going to get formula to you. We're going to get clothes to you. They're reaching out saying, hey, let's reach out.
Training you. We're going to get a job for you.
Yeah,
we're going to talk to you about marriage.
They're reaching out to dads. That's exactly right. They're reaching out to dads to say, let's sit down both of you together. And so we can get a chance to be able to talk about this long-term relationship and what this is going to look like, how y'all can together to be able to help this child in the days ahead. So it's important what they do, and I celebrate those folks that are volunteers because they're literally the front line of saving the lives of children.
They really are. One last question I want to ask you, because your staff is also pulling you, is that on adoption. I heard that you guys are having discussions in private corners about maybe doing some things in our adoption law so that more people can appreciate other life of that someone else brought here, and or our foster system, to say, hey guys, let's all participate. We know that the people are there. We know that many care. So what are you guys doing in the private rooms?
So a couple of things. The foster system, it's really how do we share ideas? Because foster system's run by the states. It's not a federal thing, but it's trying to be able to find out in Oklahoma, what are you doing in Florida? What are you doing in New York? What are you doing? What's working? And trying to get more cooperation so they can share ideas and building that network. On the adoption side, is working on the adoption child tax credit. It's now $50,000 to do an adoption for some adoption agencies. So it's incredibly expensive to be able to go through the process. Some are a lot less than that. Some are a little more than that even, but it's really expensive. So trying to be able to help say, if we're going to be a community that supports life, then we got to also help partner up families that want to be able to take these kids in, and how can we help garner a situation of life as well. So that's part of our dialogue in the tax policy, is to be able to figure out how can we make sure that if you're doing an adoption that year, you can write that off. One of the things I've been very supportive of is once your child is born, they're a little tax credit. And we always have a running joke, if your child's born in December, that's a good time for a child to be born, because you get a tax credit for the whole year.
Oh, well, there's a lot that can be born there because we have Valentine's Day in February. But go ahead. So what happens then?
But we're also saying people, when that child is actually in the womb, they're also pretty expensive at that point as well.
They are.
There's a lot of things you're buying, and so there's no reason we shouldn't have the tax credit earlier, before the child is born, to also be able to allow that family when they're setting aside money. So it's the same as once the child is born, we recognize the tax credit. We want to do that before their birth as well, because it's also a pricey time.
You're amazing.
Well, we're trying to be able to help.
And what an amazing press conference today. I'm so glad I was a part of it. I was supposed to do my intro for my show, and then I got grabbed in to be here smiling with you, and I was smiling with you. Thank you, my friend. God bless you. And we're going to continue to pray for you. We're going to continue to work with you. I'm going to continue to get interviews with you so we can get the truth out about what's actually happening here on behalf of life. Thank you.
Glad to do. Thank you.
God bless you. All right, you know him. We have heard his whole story. For those of you that don't know, Jim Lankford from the great state of Oklahoma, you might want to go back through the archives of Cure America. We interviewed him extensively. We went into his office and just got his full story of how he was a pastor, a major pastor, and then God called him to politics, and now he's here in Washington, D.C. doing the most amazing, incredible work on behalf of the Lord. Well, that's it. I think that, a day in the life of Star Parker here in Washington, events are happening all week. Everywhere, everyone is celebrating, including those of you that are prepared to be moms, that didn't know you were going to be a mom. We're celebrating for you as well. You dads, we're celebrating for you. You grandmas, you grandpas, we're celebrating with you too. And those of you that really don't feel that you can do this, you found out just today maybe that I'm pregnant and I just wasn't expecting to be, and my state doesn't allow for abortion. Well, one a good option anyway, and there's help for you. We have pregnancy care centers all across this country. CareNet, I don't even want to start listing. Just Google around, say who's in my local community that can help me walk through this challenging time in my life. We are praying for you here at Cure, and we want you to know that you are loved by God. Your child is loved, and my goodness, you don't know what that child is going to bring to the world on your behalf and on behalf of Kingdom Business. That will be incredible. So just be encouraged. Open up your little Bible. If you don't have a Bible, then contact Cure. Just call. We will get you a Bible. Now, I'll get you a Bible. So contact us. You're not alone. It seems scary because it seems so political right now. But the reason that most of us are in this work is on behalf of you. because we know that you are precious in God's eyes, and we know that that life that you're carrying is so much more precious in his eyes as well. So let's do this together. Let's not just end abortion in our country. Let's make abortion unthinkable, because every life has meaning, every life has purpose. And according to Jeremiah, God knows the plans that he has set for you. He knows, and he's given you a future and a hope. I'm Star Parker. Hey, for those of you that want to help us, curepolicy.org will continue to bring you messages, sorting through the noise of the news to find truth. See you next week.